3D Opening and Closing Coffin Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. So in the beginning, I'm going to be shaping the sides of the coffin, and I'm just going to set my nail tip up against a piece of nail form backing, and as I'm doing this, I'm just using that as like a guide so I know how long to make this wall of acrylic and exactly the angle at the one side. You want one side to be straight and the other side to sort of follow the line of the curve of the nail. So that's what we have going here. So we've got one side made, and once you got that one side, you can do the same thing, just make another piece that is going in the opposite direction, just like this. And my nail tip is a coffin shape, or a ballerina shape, which is probably the shape you want to do just because it sets you up to be in the right shape in the beginning. So then I'm going to be making 3 squares of acrylic, and they're going to be the width of the tip of the nail. So just like that, once you got one made, you can mimic it like you did before with the walls just by making more. And on my nail tip, I painted the underside red because I thought that would look pretty cool, having red underneath. That's not necessary. If you want to, go for it. You know, up to you. So now we're going to be attaching the sides, and I'm going to start with the 2 long sides, the first ones we made, and I'm going to place some wet black acrylic down and then glue that on. And once I have that so it'll stay on its own and it's about the right, it's perpendicular to the nail, I'm going to go through and I'm going to strengthen it in the inside by just adding some more acrylic and filling up any crevices that may be there. And once you got it filled up on the inside, go through and touch it up on the outside. And then you're going to want to do the exact same thing on the other side of the nail. And on these pieces, there's going to be the side that was down. The side that's down on the piece of nail form backing when you made it is going to be really smooth and perfect. And the side that was up is not going to be so smooth and perfect. But if you put the side that was perfect inside the coffin, it'll stay perfect. And then you can file the outside and make that a little bit more smooth looking later on. So put the smooth side in, if that makes sense. So then you're going to want to also attach the bottom of the coffin, the tip, and then those 2 squares up top. Now on those, because the nail is not flat, I had to cut them just a little bit so that they fit better. And I would suggest doing that. So as you're putting these on, you want them to be set, but not super hard. You don't want them rock hard, just 90% set, if that makes sense. So then you're going to have a triangle between those top 2 pieces. And so you're going to want to make a shape that will fit in the middle there. So you want to make the finishing puzzle piece at the end once you have everything else done. And then put a little bit more of that wet black acrylic, throw that puzzle piece in, smooth it out. And look at that. You are all set and it's all attached. So then, as I mentioned, we're going to be filing the top of the coffin to make sure it is completely flat, which it won't be on the first try. It's just not going to happen. But you can file it, the fabulous news. Anyways, so file to make sure that that's flat. You can test to see if there's any high spots by flipping it over on a piece of paper and then seeing if you can see through it at all. Yeah. And then file the sides and make sure that you file them so that they're nice and straight. And then clean up the dust with just a medium little fluffy brush there. So now fill in your coffin with a super thin layer of red acrylic. The reason you want this to be super thin is because you have to leave room for your skeleton, and also you want to make sure that your coffin can shut. And if your bottom of your coffin, that red, gets too thick, won't be able to shut. And then add a layer of red glitter and focus the red glitter around the outside of the coffin because you're going to put a skeleton in the middle and you don't need to waste the glitter in the middle then. Trace your coffin on a piece of paper, so just flip it over like you did before and trace that. Put another piece of that nail form backing on top of it. You should be able to see through, and then you can use that as a guide to make your coffin door. And because you do want your coffin door to be big enough that it covers up the entire coffin, make sure that you go all the way out to the edge of your pen marks so that there's no gaps. While your coffin door is setting, I'm going to be painting a layer of gel top coat inside my coffin, curing that, and then removing the tacky layer. So now the hinge is made from a long bead on a piece of wire, and the ends of the wire are bent in just slightly. So then put a bead of black acrylic the distance away as the ends of the wire, and then set that in on the side of your coffin. And then let that set, and you want this right on the edge of the coffin, and then add just a little bit more acrylic over the ends of the wire to make sure that they're nice and secure and not going to fall off. Not falling off is key. So then once that's on there, I'm going to put some more black acrylic on top of the bead and then place the door on it, and then hold those together until they are set. Make sure as you're doing this that you do not get black acrylic on anything but the door and the bead, because then you won't be able to open your coffin. That defeats the purpose. So then secure that edge between the coffin and the bead by just adding some more reinforcing acrylic, and then that should be nice and glued on. And now we're going to be sculpting our skeleton, and I'm going to be using white acrylic, and I'm going to start by sculpting his head. Now, I drew my skeleton out on a piece of paper inside that coffin that I traced. That way I know the size that it needs to be. So you don't want to start sculpting this and all of a sudden realize that you don't have room for legs or something. That would be horrible. So if you sketch it out beforehand, you know how big you need to make it, and that makes it a lot easier so that your sizing is all pre-planned. So I'm going to be making ribs and hip bones and legs and all sorts of good stuff here. And I would also, if you want to look at an actual picture of a skeleton, I know you're not going to get all of those details in this teeny tiny little nail, but it helps to look at a picture of a skeleton, because you get ideas of proportions, and you never know what little detail you'll be able to add that'll really make the difference. So yeah, look at a skeleton. And as you're sculpting this, I'm using very wet acrylic because you don't want any of this to be thick. You want all of these lines to be very thin and very delicate looking. So especially with the arms and the legs, use very thin acrylic. So now that our skeleton has set, we're going to be painting his details on his face and on his body with some black paint. So you're going to need eye sockets, the area for the nose. You're going to need to detail where his teeth are. And then just go between the ribs, because you can't sculpt them as thin as they need to be sculpted. You need to define them with some black paint. Add a couple little details here and there on the joints and everything. And then highlight with white paint. And you don't want to completely cover everything that you've sculpted with white, because that's going to make it just look so bright white and like it's flat. But if you just highlight, so going one thin line over the ribs and over all of the arm and the leg bones and everything, that's going to make it highlighted and more dimensional than it was before. So then on the lid of the coffin with white paint, I'm going to be painting a cross. You could also paint like an RIP if you like, or you could leave the coffin lid blank, but I thought a cross would kind of add a creepy touch, as if it was, I don't know, a vampire inside or something. And then cover up the cross with red paint. The reason we painted white first is because if you started out with red, the red wouldn't be bright, and we want the red to be bright and visible. So I'm going to attach 2 studs on the side of the coffin as if they were the handles to carry it with, and then I'm going to be painting glossy top coat over the entire coffin, or the outside of the coffin, I guess. And as you're doing this, make sure that you do not glue your coffin shut or glue your coffin open. Make sure that it stays mobile. And then put some matte top coat over your skeleton, being careful not to get any of that red glitter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design. Please share any recreations with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can comment with any questions that you may have, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!